Welcome back to the Arstotzkan Automotive Challenge, where users are competing to make the best 1970 communist car in automation. In this round, they need to appeal to the different members of the Automotive Council before they can go on. Watch the previous videos if you haven't already. We've got a lot of cars to get through. The Zitra 1.3 liter has a face that stands out immediately from the crowd, with a very modern fascia. The fundamental design is something we've seen a lot though, with a front transverse engine with overhead valves and a simple suspension design. It gets an impressive 30 miles to the gallon, it's moderately priced, and it's just fast enough. It has good drivability and a standout practicality score at 63. Whereas a lot of these small hatchbacks have tiny folding rear seats, this one has full-size seats and doesn't compromise on the cargo space. Dmitry thinks it's decent, but not specifically impressive, while Vonal likes it for the price and gas mileage, and Sergey will give it his approval for the extra space. That means this car is going on to the next round. The AST Dlya Vsekh,
Dlya Vsekh
for all 1600 is a ladder-framed transverse front-wheel drive car with a 1.6 liter overhead cam engine making a pretty decent horsepower and speed. It also has a standard quality interior and sound system, and a pretty good cornering and a stopping distance under 40 meters despite having only drum brakes. However, there's something about this car that's just a little stinky.
Bulgars are like onions.
As you can see on the graph here, this car's a little too prone to oversteer. This might be okay for some expert drivers who can get some good cornering out of it, but for the average driver, it's probably going to spell disaster. It applies a penalty to drivability. It also has pretty mediocre off-road, and more importantly, it just doesn't have any stats that really stand out. So none of the council members are really interested in this one. The Mechanisim. On its surface, an unassuming wagon, but underneath, it's an uncompromising off-roader. It's powered by the most powerful 3-cylinder engine here, but it's a little high-strung, making more power than torque. A full 4x4 system with manual locking diffs and a range box gives it the ability to go where other cars fear to tread. Naturally, Sergey was already sold. What about the other aspects of the vehicle? The overall price is fairly close to the top of the budget. It has the lowest service cost here, but also the worst gas mileage. That's probably partly due to the all-terrain, low-quality tires. From Vonal's perspective, this car could unduly burden the whole oil industry, so it's right out. From Dmitry's perspective, it has a basic interior and radio, but built to a high quality, which is a good way to get some comfort while keeping down the service costs. But maybe due to the suspension setup, the overall comfort's quite poor. The real killer though is the drivability. Maybe it's partly down to being a 4x4 with a range box, but it's just awkward to drive. It could really use some power steering. It has the lowest drivability score of any car here and by a wide margin, so Dmitry can't approve it. The Mechanisim is a capable vehicle, but it's not a good choice for the everyday worker. The Mons Lyudi is a wagon with a front-engine rear-wheel drive setup. It's a good-looking car, but it's not excellently optimized. For example, the engine has a harmonic dampener even though it doesn't need one, which contributes to the cost. It's not horribly balanced overall, but also doesn't have any areas where it's the best, so it's not taking a place in the finals away from some of the similar cars. The VGAZ 1505 is another front-wheel drive car, but this time with a twist. The engine's mounted longitudinally, and a boxer arrangement allows for 1.5 liters of replacement, all in front of the front axle. This keeps service costs down compared to a transverse. All-terrain tires and an off-road skid tray are not good contributors to the gas mileage. Overall, this is another car which comes close to the top of the budget, but doesn't come close to the top of any of the actual stats that the consumers care about. The spec sheet also calls for a basic interior, but in the prototype we were sent, There's leather everywhere, so I think there might be something fishy going on here. Overall, this is another car that's not going on to the next round. The Salon Bonus Special 13 is a wagon with a fairly rugged design. It's built on a ladder frame and it has a solid rear axle and leaf springs, and it's rear-wheel drive with a 4-cylinder direct overhead cam engine that makes pretty good torque. Gets almost 26 miles per gallon on the cheap fuel and has very low service costs, so overall the budget is moderate. This setup gives it decent off-road and it's fairly spacious inside. But of course we've seen a few cars like this already, so what makes the Salon stand out from the crowd? It's not the comfort. It's got basic interior and not the most comfortable suspension setup, and it's not the drivability. It's in need of some power steering. In fact, once again, Dimitri's already left the room. What the Salon does have that's special is the highest utility out of the whole crowd here. That is, the stat that represents cargo and towing capacity. It has a combined cargo and tow capacity greater than its own weight, so it's capable of pulling this 1,400 kilogram trailer and beam. It's fairly resistant to overheating, and even though it only has drum brakes, they're configured to avoid any brake fade even at a full load, which means it's capable of bringing a heavy trailer to a stop as well. As a nice bonus, it's pretty reliable and has some environmental resistance from a galvanized steel chassis, so this will get Sergio's approval. With moderate budget for top-tier utility performance, as well as decent speed, it'll get Vonel's approval as well, which means the Salon Bonus Special 13 goes on to the next round. The MAHG...
Internationale.
The MAHG Internationale is a French-style car. Naturally that means a unibody, economy car-style suspension, and front-wheel drive. It's powered by a 1.5-liter 3-cylinder, which is definitely the largest 3-cylinder here. Despite being a fairly small car, it doesn't get the best gas mileage, and it's not the fastest either. Why is that? Well, it might come down to a luxury feature. This car comes with an automatic transmission. Thanks to that, as well as power steering, this car has the highest drivability stat here. It's very smooth and easy to drive. Since it has a standard interior as well, Dimitri's very interested in this one. On the other hand, it's too expensive for Vonel's taste. The automatic transmission wastes gas and drives up service costs. In Sergio's department, the car does okay off-road, it's lifted up enough, but it's not particularly large and can't carry a lot. And besides, it's also not especially reliable, and the brakes are pretty mediocre as well, which means it's not good for towing. So he's going to have to deny this car. That means that the MAHG is not going on to the next round. At the end of the day, that's 5 more cars eliminated, and only 2 going on to the next round. Join us next time to see our last finalists, and to see which cars get left behind. Oh, and an honorable mention to the Vulcan Vickers, which I counted wrong last round. We actually had 4 approved and 3 eliminated, and this should be in the approved pile.